Chapter 19 of St. Luke's Gospel is where we find the account of the conversion of Zacchaeus, the exciseman, the tax collector. Now he's completely reformed. And I've read the visions of Maria Valtorta about that. What happens to Zacchaeus after his conversion. I'll now read chapter 520 from the 4th volume of the poem of the man God, titled Arrival at Jericho, Zacchaeus' Apostolate, given to Maria Valtorta on the 1st of November 1946. Jesus is anxiously awaited. A large crowd is in the fields near the town waiting for him. And as soon as a lookout man, who has climbed a tall walnut tree, shouts, "Here is the Lamb of God!" the people stand up and run towards Jesus, who is coming forward in the early misty twilight. "Master, Master, we've been waiting for you for such a long time. Our sick people, our children, your blessing. The old people are waiting for you to die in peace. If you bless us, Lord, no misfortune will befall us." They all speak at the same time, while Jesus raises his hand repeatedly to bless and continues to say, "Peace, peace to all of you." The apostles who are still with him are caught in the crowd and carried away from Jesus, who is almost prevented from walking by the very ones who gently complain of the long wait. Poor Zacchaeus struggles convulsively to reach Jesus, to make himself heard by him, or at least to be seen. But so short as he is, and not very agile or strong, he is always pushed back by fresh waves of people. His voice is lost in the clamour, and in the confusion of restless heads, arms and garments, his person disappears. In vain he implores, and at times he reproaches to have some compassion. People are always selfish with regard to what gives them pleasure, and are cruel to their weaker neighbour. Poor Zacchaeus, feeling exhausted after all his efforts and convinced of their uselessness, is no longer willing to struggle, and utterly disheartened, resigns himself. In fact, how can he possibly succeed if more people come rushing from every street, which look like streams flowing into the same river, the street along which Jesus is walking? And each new affluent, with a fresh wave that makes the crowd thicker and thicker, to the extent of making it frightening to be caught in it, pushes back poor Zacchaeus. Thaddeus sees him, and tries to elbow his way through the crowd, to tear him away from the corner into which the crowd has pushed and confined him. But Judas Thaddeus in turn is pushed by those pressing in upon him from behind, and his attempt fails. Thomas, relying on his strength, elbows his way and shouts in his powerful voice, "Make way," for the same purpose. Not a hope. The crowd is a wall more solid than rock, and at the same time as pliable as caoutchouc. It bends but will not break. It is no longer an embrace, it is an unbreakable chain. Thomas also resigns himself. And Zacchaeus loses all hope, because Didymus is the last of the apostles caught in the stream of people. And at last it passes. It has passed. Strips of cloth, tassels, fringes, hairpins, clothes clasps are lying on the ground, witnessing the violence. There is also a little child's sandal, completely crushed, and seems to be sadly awaiting the little foot that lost it. Zacchaeus queues up behind them, all looking sad as well, just like the little sandal snatched from its little owner by the crowd. Jesus cannot be seen any longer. A bend in the street has concealed him from poor Zacchaeus' eyes. When, last in the crowd, he arrives at the square where once he had his bench, he sees the crowds have stopped shouting, praying, imploring, and he sees Jesus, who has mounted the little step of a house, shake his head and arms. And he says something that cannot be understood because of the roar of the crowd. And finally, he sees Jesus, who has come off his pedestal with difficulty, take to the road again, and turn towards that part of the town where his house is. Zacchaeus then grows daring again. The crowd is a large one, but the square is wide. The people therefore are not so compact, and one can go through it, as if it were not too thick a hedge, if one is willing to do so and not afraid of being injured.